I'm Bre Brown and I work with JLL in Austin, Texas. I predominantly work with office users in the technology and professional service industries. Let's just briefly talk about the Austin market. So the Austin market, more so than any other market, I think, in the United States, is a bit of an anomaly because we are actually having quite a bit of activity currently. SpaceX has come or is looking in Austin. Tesla is making a big presence in Austin. And we have all these other vendors and companies that are associated with those two groups now also trying to come to Austin. In addition to Texas, historically has had a business-centric reputation. And so when we saw that Texas was starting to open up a lot quicker than the other states, that opened up the floodgate even more from companies, especially for companies that are coming from California. We've always had a huge presence of California companies looking specifically at Austin, Texas as either a satellite option or to even relocate a substantial amount of their footprint here. And with the way that Texas has handled business, we are now seeing even more companies from California trying to create a more meaningful presence in Austin. And so all of that activity has created this weird situation that we're in where, don't get me wrong, at the start of COVID, things were absolutely slowed down. I would say for the first 3 to 4 months, for sure, it was slow. There was not a whole lot going on. But we are seeing certain sectors pick back up. Not all of them. It can still, some weeks still feel slow and then others feel really hectic. It really just depends on the industry. And I would say that right now, our industrial group is probably busier now than they've ever been. And a huge component of that is just, again, all the users that are integrated with and or trying to become clients with Tesla, SpaceX. And a big part of that, again, is just everything that's happened as a result of COVID and the business operations and their incentive to come here to Austin. It depends on how big you are when talking about this question, because if you are a tenant that's in that 10,000 square foot range and under, if you have more than a year left before your lease term expires, the best thing to do right now is to just wait. Wait and see what's going on as a result of everything, because the crystal ball is really murky right now. We don't really know what all is happening. And I'm sure there are people in my industry that would not want me to be saying that. But so if you are under that 10,000 square foot mark and you have more than a year until your lease expires, the best thing to do right now is to do nothing. The exception to that rule is if you are rapidly growing right now, or if you have some other pressing reason that is causing you to relocate or to evaluate your options for whatever reason. If that is something that's impacting you, obviously it's a totally different story. This is really just the advice for the people that are maintaining status quo. And then if you are larger than 10,000 square feet, it makes all the sense in the world. If you are, 18 months out, or again, it just really depends on how big your size actually is. But if you're over 10,000 square feet and you're getting to that year mark, you should be out looking and considering your options at the very minimum. There are already some large block users that are out in the market anywhere from a year to 2 years in advance. So if you are larger than 10,000 square feet, start talking to your broker as soon as possible and just get an idea of where you would fall on that timeline in terms of what the ideal time is for you to start looking for additional space. And to add on to that, a lot of tenants will ask us, well, is there any benefit to trying to renegotiate terms right now? Or should I go ahead and renew early is another question we get asked. And it really depends on how close we are to your lease expiration again. Because if you are within a year of your lease expiration, there's probably a decent chance the landlord will start working with you already on renegotiating what those terms could be in order to incentivize you to stay. And you will get upfront concessions for doing so. Maybe it'll be a reduced rent, maybe it'll be more free rent than you were getting pre-COVID. I would say 12 months ago, you weren't getting a whole lot of concessions from landlords. And that has changed as a result of everything going on. And so there is an opportunity right now, again, if your lease expiration is coming up, to start getting ahead of it and start negotiating beneficial terms before everything gets resolved, because it's still enough of an unknown that landlords are willing to get more aggressive in terms of concessions they're willing to offer you. That being said, If you still have 3 years left on your term, or even 2.5 years, whatever, landlords are not likely to start working with you on renegotiating terms, because time is on their side and they're thinking, well, if your lease doesn't expire for another 2 years, we might be in the clear after this. And so I'm going to wait and see if market rents start returning to normal before I'm willing to engage with you. And so we are seeing some of that too. And a lot of clients are coming to us as well and asking, well, can I go ahead and renegotiate terms that I set 12 months ago? And again, the answer is we're just not quite there yet in the market. I'm not seeing any landlords willing to retrade terms or trading too early without a upcoming lease expiration that's within a reasonable amount of time. And another thing to mention is that if you are within a year of your lease term and you're having to go out into the market, try to see what kind of flexibility you can go ahead and proactively build into your lease document. Whether it's flexibility in term, flexibility in size. We have a lot of clients already trying to address potential pandemic language in any new lease. All of those things are things that you should be considering and being proactive about to the extent that you're able. So if you do have to sign a lease in the next 12 months, try to do your best to get in front of some of these unknowns that we have and try to give yourself maximum flexibility in whatever way that you can, whether that's with rent, with size, with term, etc. So that really dense desk situation we used to have, a lot of tech companies especially trying to say, can I get to 100 square feet a person, 125, 150 square feet a person? That was sort of the golden area that a lot of these tech companies used to want to be in, a very dense setup, usually bench style seating. And now they're having to contemplate, is that still safe? Are we going to have to go back to the 300 square feet a person and more in order to meet that social distancing requirement? Is bench style seating still appropriate? Or, with the addition of plexiglass, or even going back to the older cube styles, what do I need to do in order to make sure that people feel safe coming back? And so if you're contemplating that and trying to figure out how people can social distance within a workforce, you might be looking at more of a square footage, so even more space than you initially rented. Again, unless you have a portion of your workforce that is willing to work from home permanently, in which case you're only having to expand that footprint for whoever else is willing to come back in. A lot of companies are thinking, okay, well, great, this vaccination is here, but what if this happens again in 3 to 5 years? Now that we know how crippling this can be, should we always have a plan for some sort of pandemic to happen? And so we have a lot of companies having those discussions as well. And then they're working with us and our construction team and architects as well to figure out, what is my oh crap plan if a pandemic happens again? Can I reuse these spaces and just change out the furniture in order to accommodate a pandemic plan versus a non-pandemic plan? And what's my density in the event of a pandemic? How many of my employees would have to work from home? And then flipping that around, if everyone came back, what's the most dense I can get? So you're seeing this really interesting conversation, and there is no perfect answer for any client. It's extremely contingent upon who their employees are and what's important to them. No matter what, every company is contemplating COVID. They're trying to figure out how to get people back into the workforce safely in order to increase productivity, but also we are seeing a shift in the way that companies are operating, and we're seeing them shift to allow people to be a bit more flexible, either working from home a part of the week or the full week or every other week or a percentage of the year or whatever, and then having those hoteling desks or having the people that do need to come into the office, and then how do you make them feel safe? How much space does that person need? And so we're just seeing really all over the board. We are seeing companies that are taking even more square footage as a result of COVID for the same amount of employees, again, because they're assuming everyone will eventually come back and they want to be able to have that 6 feet of distance between each person. And then on the other scale, we have clients that are taking less square footage because they are thinking that more of my workforce is going to want to work from home permanently, and or we're banking on the fact that this pandemic is going to go away in the next 6 months and we'll be good to go. We can go back to our old density. So you're seeing both ends of the spectrum, and at this point the crystal ball is hazy. We don't really know where it's going to go, and so we just try to help the clients have those conversations to the best of our ability and just help them figure out and strategize what makes the most sense for them. And it's extremely client specific at this point. There is no one size fits all.